everyone, welcome to Kids Corner. Today we are in my kitchen. We are going to make some matzah. Matzah is a flat bread that is served at a Passover Seder meal, and tomorrow is Maundy Thursday. So tomorrow we are celebrating the Last Supper where Jesus shared a Passover meal with his disciples. So I thought it'd be fun to get in the kitchen and make some matzah together. We'll talk a little bit more about the history and significance of matzah as it's baking in the oven in a little bit. But for now, matzah is literally just two ingredients put together. It's flour and water. And then at the end, you can brush some oil on it and sprinkle some salt if you'd like to. But it's super, super easy if you want to make it along with me. We just need a cup of flour, so I'm going to get that. And a bowl. I'm going to use this glass mixing cup so you can see kind of what's going on in there as I am making it, but any mixing bowl will do, or a cereal bowl, whatever. It doesn't use a whole lot of space. And then 1/3 cup of water. So we've got our 1 cup of flour and 1/3 cup of water. And then I've got a fork, and you're going to mix it together using a fork. And you only want to pour in a little bit of water at a time. Just kind of mix it together like that. It's going to be really clumpy at first, and that's okay. A little bit more in, keep mixing. And this dough isn't really going to come together until we get it out of the cup or bowl or whatever it is you're mixing it in and knead it on the surface. So don't be worried if it's not really looking like any dough you're used to or familiar with yet, that's okay. Just keep mixing. A little bit more water. There are a lot of other components to a traditional Seder meal, and we're not going to talk about any of those today, but this flatbread was a part of the original Passover in Egypt. When they were getting ready, the night that the final plague was coming through, God told them to make matzah, to make this flat unleavened bread, to go along with the lamb that they were sacrificing and eating. And they had to make matzah because they didn't have time to let anything rise. There was no time. So they just used the flour and the water and made this really quick flat bread. All right, so as you can see, this is not at all come together yet, but that's okay. I'm just gonna get it all out onto my silpat here. And then we're gonna get in there with our hands. Get a little messy and kind of bring it together. You can see it's really crumbly. I don't know if you can see this, but there's lots of like loose flour. That's totally fine. You can also kind of see that our dough is starting to look more like a dough and less like a big pile of flour. So that's good. So the Israelites at that original Passover meal made a bunch of this matzah and presumably took some of it with them on their way out of Egypt when God was delivering them from the slavery they had been imprisoned to for several hundred years there into the desert. So at the Last Supper on Maundy Thursday, when we celebrate that Last Supper of Jesus, he had this kind of bread there, this flat, unleavened bread. Might not have been exactly like this, but something similar to this. And this is the bread that when he was blessing it and lifting up the cup to demonstrate what would happen when we celebrate communion, this would have been the bread that he broke, that he picked up and broke. All right, so once your dough comes together kind of like this, now we need to divide this into 8 pieces. So we're going to divide it in half. This is kind of where you use some of the fraction, right? Okay, so now we've got 2 pieces. Then divide each of these 2 pieces into 2 pieces. And then each one of these we're going to divide into 2 pieces. And now we have 2, 4, 6, 8. 8 pieces. We're going to take these pieces one at a time and kind of roll them into a ball. squish them flat, and then use our rolling pin here. Get a little bit of this extra flour on there so it doesn't stick. And roll these out nice and thin. Pretty much as thin as you can get them is what you're going for. I'll also mention that your oven is going to be preheated to 475 degrees. So kids, make sure you don't use the oven without an adult there. An adult needs to be the one in charge of the baking of the matzah bread, but you can certainly mix the flour and water together and do all the fun parts, like kneading it and then rolling it out nice and thin into your little crackers. All right, so then just do that 7 more times. All right, so now you can see these are all different shapes. Some are different sizes, that's totally fine. Whatever shape they wind up in is completely all right. And the last thing we're gonna do before they go in the oven is each one needs pricked with a fork on each side. And the recipe that I'm using says to do it 25 times. So we'll count to 25 and do 25 fork prints on each side. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. Then you flip it over. Do the same thing on the other side. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. So I don't know if you can see this. It's got the little dots on each side. It'll probably be a little easier to see once it's out of the oven, but then you do that 7 more times. All right, so the reason that you prick it with a fork on, oh, my oven is preheated. How about that timing, am I right? You want to prick it with a fork on both sides so that it doesn't rise at all. It's very important that it comes out very, very flat. So now is when you're going to need to ask an adult for some help. Once the oven is preheated to 475, forgot to mention, you need to put a baking sheet in while it's preheating, a heavy baking sheet, or I'm using a pizza stone actually, just something really heavy to get hot in the oven while it's preheating, and again, that's the adult's job. So I'm gonna open the oven now, pull out the top rack with the baking sheet on it, and lay down my matzah all on the pizza stone that I've gotten there. And they're gonna cook for 2 minutes on one side, and then we'll flip them, and they'll cook for 2 minutes on the other side. So, all right, we've got a timer going for 2 minutes. The oven rack that I've got the baking sheet on is very near to the top of the oven. So you're gonna get kind of like right near the top where it can crisp up a little bit there. We've got 2 minutes on the clock here, and once that 2 minutes is up, we will flip those. So matzah, like we said, was the type of bread that was used at the original Passover meal back in ancient Egypt when the Israelites were getting ready to flee into the desert away from the Pharaoh. And Jesus, when he comes into Jerusalem, is coming in to celebrate this Passover festival with his disciples and with the people there. So at the Last Supper, he is celebrating with this Seder meal, with the matzah and all of the other components of this Seder meal. So when we get the matzah out, we'll be able to see the kind of bread that Jesus used to break and say, this is my body that's broken for you. So that's pretty cool. If you want to make this tomorrow, it might be something neat to snack on while you watch our live stream of our Maundy Thursday service at 7:30 p.m. on Riverside's YouTube page. Be a neat project. It's got some, fractions and counting and things like that involved, so it could count for your homeschool work for the day too. And of course, baking, chemistry, science, it's got it all. History lesson, all good stuff. So we'll wait 30 more seconds. All right, our 2 minutes is up. I'm gonna open the oven. The adult should be doing this part. Pull out the baking rack and flip over all of the little matzah. Ten seconds left. All right, when we get these out, we're gonna brush some oil on them and sprinkle some salt, and they'll be done. They're really quick, really easy to make. Here we go. So I'm gonna take those and put them on a plate to bring them over here. Some of these got a little puffier than I think they're supposed to. But I'll tell you a secret, this is my first time ever making matzah too. So if I can do it with one internet recipe and a little bit of guessing, I bet you guys can do it too. So we're gonna need some oil and some salt. Pour a little bit in there. All right, so we'll take our one matzah cracker, brush it with oil, and then sprinkle some salt. If you wanted to keep it kosher, you could use kosher salt. I'm using sea salt. And there you have it. That's our matzah. So break it. We'll try a piece. That's pretty good. All right. Now I'm going to be chewing as I try to sign off. I hope the rest of your Holy Week goes great. Have a happy Maundy Thursday tomorrow and a wonderful, wonderful Easter weekend. All right. Bye, guys. God bless.